Okay, so let's unpack this. You really can't scroll online these days without seeing, something about AI taking over.
It's everywhere, isn't it?
It really is. And the big question, I think, for a lot of us, and probably for you, our listener, the learner, is, well, is AI really going to take our jobs by 2030?
Yeah, it's a valid concern.
Yeah,
And it can feel pretty overwhelming trying to sort the facts from the hype.
exactly. So for this deep dive, we've tried to pull together a whole range of sources. We've got expert analyses, some industry reports.
hmm And even some raw discussion from places like Reddit, which can be quite revealing.
Right. We looked at material from Gaper.io, Harvard Business School Online, MIT Sloan.
The open AI community on Reddit,
Yeah.
yeah. Plus, insights from the Digital Data Design Institute at Harvard,
Yeah.
U.S. Career Institute, BTU, AI Journal, and TechTarget. We tried to cover a lot of ground.
We really did. And our goal today for you is to try and give a clear, sort of balanced picture of how jobs might shift by 2030 because of AI.
We want to pinpoint where the real risks are, but also, just as importantly, where human skills are likely to, you know, stay essential.
And hopefully do it in a way that's easy to follow without getting totally lost in technical jargon. So ready to jump in.
Absolutely. Let's start with the big picture, those overall predictions about job impact.
Okay. Because there are some pretty striking numbers out there.
There are.
Gaper.io, for example, they mentioned that maybe up to 30% of U.S. jobs could be impacted somehow by AI and automation by 2030.
Yeah, 30%. That's a significant chunk of the workforce.
It really is. But what's actually behind that number? Is it all doom and gloom?
Well, not necessarily. The World Economic Forum projection, which Gaper.io also mentioned, is interesting. They predicted 85 million jobs might be displaced globally by 2025.
Okay, that sounds bad.
But they also projected 97 million new roles could be created. So it highlights this dynamic nature. It's not just loss, it's also change and creation.
Right, so churn, basically. Displacement and new opportunities.
Exactly. And understanding why certain jobs are more vulnerable helps make sense of it.
Okay. So, why are some jobs more at risk than others?
The core reason, and we see this across sources, is that AI is particularly good at tasks that are repetitive and rule-based.
Like data entry, maybe? Or
Yeah.
basic
Oh,
calculations?
precisely. Think data entry, basic accounting functions, even standardized customer service responses. Gaper.io references a McKinsey finding that about half of current work activities could technically be automated right now.
Wow, 50%. That's a lot.
It is. But could be automated isn't the same as will be, of course. Cost and implementation matter.
Sure. And what makes other jobs safer then?
It often comes down to skills that are, well, uniquely human. Things like emotional intelligence, empathy, genuine creativity, complex critical thinking. AI struggles with those.
Right. So you can contrast something like bookkeeping, which is very rule-based,
Yeah,
with, say, being a nurse or a teacher, where empathy and dealing with unpredictable human situations are crucial.
exactly. Those human-centric skills are much harder to automate effectively. The U.S. Career Institute really emphasizes this point, too.
And businesses must be looking at the efficiency angle, the cost savings.
Oh, absolutely. That's a massive driver. AI can often do repetitive tasks faster, cheaper, and, 2047.
Like self-checkout lanes or AI managing warehouse inventory.
Perfect examples. Gaper.io mentions an Oxford study suggesting nearly half of U.S. jobs are at high risk, partly because automating low-skill repetitive jobs saves companies money.
And technology just keeps getting better, faster. Things like custom AI models, autonomous vehicles, that must be changing the equation too.
Definitely, the pace of development is accelerating, so jobs that maybe seemed safe a few years ago might not be in the future as AI gets more capable. Custom LLMs, for instance, could impact more knowledge work. Autonomous vehicles? Well, that's a huge potential disruption for driving jobs.
Okay. Gaper.io actually listed 15 specific jobs they think AI will likely replace or significantly impact by 2030. Let's maybe run through a few of those.
Sounds good.
First up, data entry clerks. Seems like a classic example.
It really is. Highly repetitive structured data. AI is just tailor-made for that. Accuracy, speed. It significantly cuts the need for manual entry. McKinsey's projection of up to 38% automation in related tasks by 2030, cited by Gaper.io, reflects that.
Okay. Next, telemarketers. I suspect not many people will shed a tear over that one.
Perhaps not. But AI chatbots are getting very good at handling scripted calls, basic Q&A. Gaper.io notes potential cost reductions of up to 80% using AI here, which is a huge incentive for companies.
80%, wow, okay. What about receptionists?
Again, Think about the routine tasks. Automated check-in systems, scheduling bots, basic information provision. AI can handle a lot of that now, especially in places like hotels or large offices.
And customer service representatives, we've probably all interacted with AI here already.
For sure. AI chatbots, virtual assistants, they can handle a large volume of common inquiries. Gartner predicted, as Gaver.io mentioned, that by 2027, a quarter of customer service operations will use AI chatbots as a primary channel.
A quarter. Okay. Bookkeeping clerks also made the list.
Yes, similar logic. AI accounting software is getting very sophisticated. It can handle transactions, reconciliation, even generate reports, reducing the need for manual bookkeeping for those core tasks.
Makes sense. The list also included truck drivers and taxi drivers. That's the autonomous vehicle impact, right? A massive potential change.
Huge. Millions of jobs globally could be affected by 2030, according to some projections Gaper.io cited.
Also proofreaders. AI is pretty good at spotting grammar and spelling mistakes now.
Very good. Reportedly, up to 90% of the basic tasks can be done by AI.
Manufacturing workers, too, with more robots on assembly lines. The World Economic Forum figure Gaper.io used was a potential 30% reduction there.
Right, and it continues. Delivery drivers with drones and AI logistics.
Security guards, maybe, with AI surveillance and facial recognition getting better.
That's on the list, too. Also, market research analysts' AI can crunch huge data sets much faster. Even roles like pharmacists, using AI for prescriptions or inventory, and financial analysts, using AI for data analysis, forecasting, and trading.
So the common thread is really that automation of routine, predictable, or data-intensive tasks.
That's the core of it, yeah.
But this obviously raises some big ethical questions, doesn't it? It's not just about efficiency.
Absolutely. Harvard Business School Online and BTU both highlighted major ethical concerns. Job reduction and replacement are obviously front and center.
Harvard mentioned the history here, like with ATMs displacing bank tellers decades ago. It's not entirely new, but the scale might be different.
Right. And there's more. They talked about digital amplification, how AI can amplify existing biases or spread misinformation if not carefully managed, like an AI recommending news based on past biases.
And algorithmic bias itself, that's a huge one, especially in hiring.
A massive one. If the data AI learns from is biased, reflecting historical discrimination, for example, the AI's decisions will also be biased. Think of an AI screening resumes and filtering out certain groups unfairly.
So it could actually worsen inequality.
It definitely could. It can lead to discriminatory hiring, unequal access to opportunities, even bias within the workplace itself. That's why diverse data sets and regular audits are so critical.
Harvard also mentioned the digital divide, where some industries just can't leverage AI as easily.
Yeah, like maybe traditional manufacturing or a small brick-and-mortar retail. They risk falling further behind industries that could adopt AI more readily.
And BTU brought up other key ethical points too, right? Like privacy concerns.
Privacy, bias, transparency, or lack thereof, and how AI makes decisions, the overall employment impact we've been discussing, and workplace surveillance implications. Lots to consider.
Okay, so given these challenges, MIT Sloan had some interesting ideas about making AI more pro-worker, as they put it.
Yes, they argued for pursuing a human complementary path for AI development.
Meaning AI that helps workers, rather than just replacing them.
Exactly. Contrasting it with the pure automation focus, they point out that just displacing workers, even high-paid ones, isn't necessarily good for the economy or society overall.
So the idea is to use AI to create new tasks, new capabilities for workers.
That's the goal. Deploying AI to augment what people do. Think of AI assisting teachers with personalized lesson plans, helping nurses analyze complex data faster, or enabling tradespeople to do more specialized, expert-level work.
Making people better at their jobs, essentially.
Right. Enhancing productivity and maybe even making work more engaging.
Did they have specific policy suggestions to encourage this?
They did. 5 key federal recommendations.
Yeah.
One was equalizing tax incentives, so companies aren't just pushed towards automation purely for tax reasons versus hiring humans.
Okay, level the playing field.
2, updating OSHA rules to address AI surveillance in the workplace. 3, boosting public funding for research, specifically into this human complementary AI.
Because private companies might focus more on cost-cutting automation.
Potentially, yeah. 4, creating a government AI center of expertise. And 5, using federal leverage in areas like public education and healthcare to promote worker-centric AI adoption.
That's a really constructive approach, thinking about how to steer the technology.
It is. It suggests we have choices in how this unfolds.
So let's flip back to the jobs themselves. Which ones seem relatively safer from AI taking over? We looked at the U.S. Career Institute list and some Reddit discussions.
Yeah, the U.S. Career Institute really hammered home the importance of those human qualities. Social skills, emotional intelligence, building relationships, creativity. Also jobs with lots of non-routine tasks.
And they specifically mention fields like healthcare and education as being more resilient.
Definitely. Their list of top 65 jobs safest from AI was full of them. They even noted projected growth rates for some, like nurse practitioners expected to grow over 45% by 2032. That's huge.
Wow. So what were the main categories on their list?
Healthcare was big: nurses, doctors, therapists, counselors, education teachers, instructors, creative fields, choreographers, designers, writers. Well, there's debate there. And personal services roles like coaches, trainers, clergy.
Okay. And what about the view from the trenches on Reddit? Specifically, the Rope and AI subreddit. Did they agree?
It was a fascinating mix. Skilled trades came up a lot: plumbers, electricians. The argument was about the need for physical dexterity, problem solving in messy, real-world situations.
Things robots aren't great at yet, and maybe aren't cost-effective for.
Exactly, at least in the short to medium term. Though people acknowledged robotics will keep improving long term.
What about healthcare on Reddit? Same view as the Career Institute.
Generally, yes. People emphasize the trust factor, the need for human touch and interaction, especially for doctors and nurses.
Hmm.
But there was also a discussion about AI definitely impacting diagnostics, radiology, maybe some specific specializations. So not totally immune, but the core human element remains strong.
And the creative fields. Always a hot topic with AI image and text generators.
Oh yeah, big debate there. You had folks pointing to things like Sora, the video generator, and asking if artists are doomed. Others argued strongly that AI can be a tool, but it can't replicate true human originality, emotion, lived experience.
So differing views on whether AI replaces or just augments creativity.
Pretty much. And there was also talk about completely new jobs emerging.
Ah, right. The jobs we haven't even thought of yet.
Jobs in developing AI, maintaining it, training it, managing the human-AI collaboration,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
But uncertainty about how many of those new jobs there will actually be.
Exactly.
Huh.
Will it be enough to offset the losses? Nobody really knows for sure. Some even brought up the more extreme view: what if most jobs get automated? What's the purpose of human work then? Big questions.
Really big questions. Which brings us to adaptation. Reskilling seems absolutely essential here. Harvard's Digital Data Design Institute and the AI Journal had insights.
Yes. Harvard defined reskilling simply as training for a new job, often quickly. Their example was like a car mechanic learning to work on electric vehicles.
A necessary shift. Why is it so critical now?
Well, several reasons. Jobs just require more skills, technology evolves incredibly fast, business cycles are quicker, and there are often labor shortages in specific new areas. Reskilling helps bridge those gaps.
So benefits for both workers and companies.
Definitely. For companies, it builds talent pipelines internally, helps retain company culture, though. That can be a double-edged sword if it hinders agility and boosts productivity and engagement when done well.
But there are challenges too.
Sure, reskilling programs might not cover everyone. They can be expensive. Sometimes preserving the old culture gets in the way of needed change. And it can even cause friction between employees who get retrained and those who don't.
So how do companies make reskilling work effectively?
Harvard stressed it needs to be seen as a core strategic priority, driven from the top but involving everyone down to middle managers. Strong alignment and real commitment are key. It's about organizational adaptation, really. Companies have options: resist change, just let AI adoption happen haphazardly, or actively shape how AI is adopted to lower the adaptation costs for everyone.
And the AI Journal also emphasized continuous learning.
Yes, fostering adaptability, focusing on developing those skills that complement AI critical thinking, creativity, emotional intelligence, complex problem solving. Lifelong learning is basically becoming the norm.
Okay, one last piece. Legislation and regulation. TechTarget touched on this. Is anyone actually, making rules for AI?
It's definitely happening, but it's kind of patchy still.
Yeah.
TechTarget mentioned increasing focus at state and city levels, like New York City's Local Law 144, about AI and hiring.
And internationally.
The EU's AI Act is the big one there, a comprehensive approach. The U.S. federal approach is less comprehensive so far, but there are frameworks like Safe Innovation and President Biden's executive order.
What do those aim to do?
Things like protecting consumer privacy, promoting AI education, trying to ensure equity, supporting workers through the transition, creating jobs, kind of hitting all the key areas.
So the takeaway is that regulation is
Exactly. It's a mix. Displacement, creation, and transformation. And wrapped around all of that are the crucial ethical considerations and the absolute need for proactive reskilling and adaptation efforts.
It also feels like the impact isn't set in stone. How we choose to develop, implement, and regulate AI really matters.
Absolutely. The MIT Sloan points about a human complementary path to highlight that we have agency here. It depends on the choices we make.
So maybe a final thought for you, the learner, as you process all this. Think about your own skills, your career path. Which parts really lean into those uniquely human capabilities?
Yeah, and how can you actively engage in continuous learning? What new skills might become really valuable in a world where AI handles more of the routine stuff?
It's definitely worth considering which aspects of your work AI might augment and which it might struggle to replace. Something to think about.
Definitely food for thought.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive today.